thanks for joining me for another tutorial. Today we'll be making felted play mats. So to make these mats, what we need is some quite hot water, but it's cool enough that I can put my hand in. I need some dishwashing liquid, any type that you have at home will be fine. You could also use soap. I've got a variety of coloured wool roving or tops. I've got a towel to keep things nice and tidy, 2 bamboo sushi rolls, 2 pieces of bubble wrap, and a small strip of nylon netting. Now this has to be nylon or synthetic. It can't be cotton because then our fibres will felt to it and we don't want that. Okay, let's get started. So first thing I need to do is take some wool roving. I'm going to create a little pond today. So I'm going to do the outline of the pond first. Now you can see that I'm putting my wool roving. I'm just taking little wispy parts of it and I'm putting it all in the same direction. In a moment I will come across and put the wool roving going the opposite direction. So I'm going to create a circular shape. Now, I'm going to come and put the wool roving in the opposite direction. I'll get to this bit in the middle, I just want that to be a different colour. So I'll do my brown first. You can see it's just very fine and wispy. We can come later and add some more colour and more detail, so I don't want it to be too thick to begin with. Now I'm going to take some blue and start with the water in the middle. Again, you can see that it's all going in the same direction. I'm just tucking these little bits because I don't really want the water to be coming onto the ground. Now what I'm doing is coming with the same colour and going in the opposite direction. Now I've got fairly good coverage. I might just come along and add a little bit more wool here. I seem to have not much here at all. I don't want that bit to be a gap. There's to be a gap. I'm just coming along and adding just slight little bits of extra wool to make sure I don't have any holes. Okay, now that's done, I'm going to add some water. Now I don't want to pour this on, so I'm just going to use my fingertips and drop a little bit of water on. Now this water is quite warm. It's probably just about as hot as I can put my hand into comfortably. I don't want it boiling for obvious reasons, but I don't want it cold either. The heat helps the fibres of the wool felt together. Now, I'm just going to add a couple of little drizzles and drops of a dishwashing liquid. Now that I've got my dishwashing liquid and my water on my wool, I'm going to add a piece of nylon netting. Now it should be nylon and not cotton because I don't want the felt of the wool to felt to it. So very gently, I'm kind of holding it in place but rubbing a little bit as I go along. Now I want to do this over the whole piece. I've just been felting this. It's probably taken me about 5 minutes. Now what I want to do is I'm going to peel this layer off. It hasn't felted very much at all, but I'm going to add some more colour before we go any further with our felting. So very carefully, so that I don't pull it all apart, I'm going to take this nylon netting off and add some more colours. As you can see, it's quite wet and it's quite soapy. Now, I'd really like this part around here to be a bit greener. So I'm going to go ahead and add my green bits to that now. So just like last time, I'm putting all of the fibres running one way, and then I'll come across in a moment and do a second layer, and the fibres will come the other direction. Now this is where you want to pay attention to places like this, where I can see my bamboo underneath here, so I know that that's very thin and it'll need a little bit of extra wool to cover that. Now I'd also like to add a bit more colour to our water. First I'll just do a bottom layer of that same colour we started with. And then I'm going to come with the top layer and add some new blues in there. You can see I'm just working this wool fibre into different shapes before I place it down. Got a bit of bluey green here too. I might just add that on as well, different colours. And also want to add a tiny bit of white to my water. And sometimes with fibre, you only need a tiny bit to add the colour, highlights. Now for some grass. Let's just add a little bit of different colours on there too. Oh, I don't want it in my water. Rolling this here, I'm going to place it on the side. Maybe that might look like some rocks. Now I can come later and add a few more details if I want to. Also at the end, when it's all dried and finished, I could also come along with my needle and needle felt some details onto this. Okay, when you're happy with how your mat is looking, go ahead and take some water and sprinkle some of your water on and add a little bit more of your dish detergent as well. And we don't want to add so much that this is going to be soaking, but definitely enough that you'll get an even coverage of water. A little drizzle of your dishwashing liquid. And back on with our nylon. And first we just push gently onto it. to let those wool fibres soak up the water before we start to rub. And very gently, I'm going to start rubbing again. And we continue very gently all the way around. Now if you get to some spots, well, you can see here that I do have enough soap and water. But if you get to a spot where there's not enough, you can go ahead and add water onto the top of your nylon netting. It feels a little dry to me, so I'm going to go ahead and add a bit more water. Now I can see that it's squashing out of there, so that's what we want. It's still soapy enough. I can see that soap is squashing out between my fingers. Making sure that it's actually on the bubble wrap. Once you've done a bit of felting work, what we're going to do is just pull off the nylon netting and have a look what we've got. Just be careful you don't pull all of it together because you will undo all of your felting. So I can see that the end bits are definitely not felted. But I am getting a little somewhere with the inside parts. Now it should all come together in one piece. I've just turned it over, and I wanted to do that because I wanted to have a look at these edges. What I really want to do is smooth them down a little bit to give the other side a nice edge to it without little wispy bits of wool. So all I'm doing is just taking the very edges where the wispy bits are and pulling them over the back. Okay, you can see that I've now folded all of these little end pieces over. I'm going to go ahead and bring our nylon back over the top. And I'm just going to spend some time working on these end bits. Now you want to go ahead and spend about 10 or so minutes felting the back of it now. Now my 10 minutes is up. I'm going to take my nylon netting off and have a look at my mat. You should see a little bit of the fibres stuck here, but you should easily be able to pull it off. If you have some lumpy bits like this, you may want to remove those. Gently flatten out your mat if you ended up with any bumps or creases. Now we're going to turn it back over and work on the other side now. Okay, now you might want to have a look at your mat and decide if there's anything else that you'd like to add to it. What I feel that I'd like to do, I'm going to add a little bit more water over on this side. I just want to make that pond a little bit bigger. So I can take the time now and add any changes that I like to. Any more colours, any little details that I didn't think of the first time when I was adding colour. So in this time, we don't actually need to... I'm still adding a few little extra bits of colour now that I've decided to increase the water. I can go ahead and add some more of the highlights that I wanted originally. And on this side over here, I did try to add a little bit of what looks like dirt, but it sort of didn't work out very well. So I'm just going to come along and add a bit more colour to that area also. Now at this point, I don't need to cover up the whole mat unless I would like to make the mat thicker. Now my mat is pretty thin, so I may go ahead and add a bit more green and a little bit of grey over here. If there's any little details that you'd like to add, go ahead and add those now. But as I said before, we can also come back later and needle felt some finer details on. I've gone ahead and added all of the colour that I wanted to add here, but now I'm just going to add two little goldfish. And how I've done that is I've got a little bit of the roving. I'm just going to roll this top bit in on itself and in between my fingers. I'm hoping that once it's all felted together, this part here will fan out a little bit like a tail, and this part will stay together rather like its body and head. Place that in there. Now I'm going to put my netting over the top. At this point, just check your netting. Make sure you don't have any big blobs of wool that you'd like to remove. Okay. Netting over the top. Add a little bit of the dishwashing liquid. Now we're going to just press the water into the wool again. Okay, I've just spent some time felting the front side of my mat. Now what I want to do is I'm going to put all of these wispy bits in, so I need to turn my mat over. Turn it over. Now just like we did last time, take these little wispy bits and just fold them over, just exactly as we did it the first time. So let's go ahead and put our nylon back on and start felting this side for another 10 or so minutes. I've just gone ahead and turned my mat over. As you can see, I've got some little spots of colour. Now they're going to be my little flowers on here. So to do that, I'm just taking a little bit of wool roving, wet my fingers a little bit, just roll the wool in between my fingers, and then I'll place it onto my mat. Have a look at your mat and make sure you're happy with it. Add any more colour if you'd like to. If not, pull the netting back over and start felting. Now you probably want to felt again for maybe about 20 minutes or so. Now I can see that I've just pulled this little pink flower onto my water section, so I'm just going to very carefully go and move those back where they should be. Okay, to begin with, we just want to gently felt these sections so they don't move around too much. Once you feel that they're felted a little bit to the fibres underneath, you can go ahead and start felting a bit more vigorously. If your mat's feeling a little bit dry, go ahead and add some more water or some more soap. Just adding a little bit more water to mine. I think there's enough soap in there. So I'll go ahead and start felting again. I'm just making sure there's no little wispy bits from my edge here or any unwanted colours. I'm just tucking them under as I go. What you might want to do is turn your mat sideways. I find it easier to work the fibres this way. Okay, so what we want to do is continue in this way for another 15 or so minutes. When you feel that you might be close to having your mat felted together, the thing that you can do is a pinch test. So if you come along and pinch a bit of the fibres, you can see that I can actually work those fibres out. Over here, so that's not felted, so I need to do quite a bit more work on this to make the fabric come back together. So on goes my nylon netting.
You may choose to continue felting by rubbing your fingers over the netting, or you might like to felt by rolling up your mat in this way. Just make sure that the bubble wrap has the bubbles facing down onto your felt.
Unroll it. Make sure you check on it every now and again. Don't just keep rolling. You might end up with a big felted blob. On the bottom of your bubble wrap, take the top one off. What you need to do is gently stretch out the bottom one. Off your nylon netting. If you're like me, you'll need to unfold your bit of felt, smooth it out again before you go ahead and start another round. This time, I think I may turn it sideways, just move it more into the centre. Turn it this way. Now that's relatively flat again. Back goes the nylon netting. That goes the bubble wrap, and let's wrap up again. So you may see that my piece is getting slightly smaller, so that's good. That tells me that the fibres are working together to become a piece of fabric. That's what we want. Cover that little piece. You might stick, you might need some needle felting at the end. Okay, that goes the netting. And the bubble wrap. Let's roll up again. Okay, unroll. See what we've got this time. Now what I might do is I might turn it over and continue felting this side. Okay, once I've turned 4 times and I'm back to the original position, so we should just finish up our felting now. Now what we want to do is take off our nylon netting again. Making sure nothing sticks to it. We should have all pretty much come together at this point. But my pinch test tells me that it's mostly felted. So that's exactly what we want. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a bowl of water and I'm just going to very gently put it inside. I've got a bottle of vinegar here, and I'm just going to add a capful of vinegar to the water. That's to add some acidity back into our wool and help it settle back into its new position in the felted mat. So I want to just rinse a few times, getting some of that soap out. Squeeze it out. You might like to do this in a sink. Squeeze your soap out. Your mat should look something like this. The other thing that you might like to do is gently give your felted piece some shape. You can just gently take hold of the ends and tug it into the direction that you'd like. I wanted mine a little bit more rounder, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull those out a little bit. It's a little bit better for me. So now I'm just going to wait till this to dry, and I can needle felt some more detail onto it. Or if I'm happy with this, as soon as it's dry, I can go ahead and give that to the children to play with.
Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, show your support by giving it a like. And if you'd like to stay updated with all of my new tutorials, please subscribe.